everyone, thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to cover the permits and fees and what they cost if you're getting ready to build a custom home in San Diego County area. So I want to actually cover a range, from this number to this number. This is kind of where they fall. And then we're going to go through an example of a project and what that particular one would cost. And then we're also going to talk about some considerations of other fees that are not always included that may be included. So you want to think about that and make sure you're considering them when you're putting together the cost for your budget to build your house. Okay. So the first thing is, what does it actually cost in the range? What's the range of those fees? And they're typically between $28,000 to $45,000 or so is what you're looking at. Now, the example that we're going to talk about today is a 2,226 square foot home. So not a huge house, but it is a decent sized home. You can get a decent sized 4-bedroom house out of this if you would like to for your family. So, and this particular house has a garage on it. Say it's a 2 or 3 car garage, basic covered porches that would be on this particular house. Okay, so what does that cost? So we're going to look at the first thing we're going to talk about is school fees. So the school fees typically will range anywhere from somewhere around $3.50 a square foot up to maybe even $5, depending on the actual school district you're in. It's very specific. You need to check with your school district and determine what that fee is. It's sometimes called a developer fee, but it's essentially, hey, if I'm building a new house, what is it going to cost me? And they base it off of the square footage of the living area of the home. So you're going to look at that. So this one would be based off of 2,226 square feet. This particular fee of $3.48 a foot is based off of Ramona Unified School District, and that is what they're charging now. That changes all the time, so make sure you check, but that's what it is. So that total is, on this particular project, would be $7,747 for the school fee. So that's the first thing you want to consider. Second thing is, in the county, they are charging a traffic impact fee, and the traffic impact fee can be substantial, and it ranges by the area. There's like in village area, inside the village area, outside the village area fees that they have. There's different rates, so you want to check that. This particular fee we have at $4,119. That can range anywhere from like $3,000 to $8,000, depends on where it's at. It normally falls kind of in the middle of that. So just keep in mind that you will need to check on your specific area what the traffic impact fees are for your location for your house. Okay. The next thing on here is your plan check fees. And these are typically paid right when you submit your plans to the County of San Diego, and you're going to pay those right at the submittal. Okay, so that's the first part of it. Those typically run anywhere from $1.05 a square foot to $1.50 a square foot, somewhere in that range. So this one here, we're using the lower end of it, which is like about $1.05. And that comes to about $2,331. Now this, if you're building a smaller house that is, say maybe some people are building maybe a 1,200 square foot house that they would convert to an ADU later, those costs will be higher per square foot. So be prepared for that. So just know that that's going to be a little bit higher. You might maybe your $2 to $3 a foot. It just depends on the size of that house. As you can see, this one here is $2,331 on a 2,226 square foot house. So it may fall closer to that $2 a foot range for you. Okay, so then the next thing you want to consider is, once you have your actual plans of everything signed off and approved, they'll issue you a building permit, and you pay for these fees at the very end. They'll actually issue you a receipt, and then you go in and actually make the payment on this. And those costs are typically around $2.50 a square foot. They can go $2.50 to $3 a square foot, based again off of the living areas, how we're figuring these numbers. So taking your living square footage, which on this house is 2,226 square feet. So don't confuse that with under roof footage, which would include like covered porch areas and also garages. We're actually using this number to calculate it based off of the living footage of the home. Okay, so the next thing is park fees. And the park fees are charged on new homes that are actually built. This is not, if you actually have a house that's burned down, there's a home in this lot prior, you don't get charges a lot of times park fees. But on new homes you do, and it's around $7,500. It's a little bit higher. They actually just bumped that up a little bit. I think last one we paid about $7,800. So make sure you pay attention to what that changing number is. But it's definitely a significant chunk of change that you have to pay for your park fees, City of County park fees. Okay, So that is park fees. The next thing is if you are on a property that does not have city sewer and you are having to put in a septic system, you're going to have to submit a septic layout on the very beginning that has to get approved, and this has to be signed off prior to actually the building permit issued. So you're going to have a septic layout fee. You're also going to have a septic permit fee, and those are going to cost somewhere around, they'll probably be about $2,500. This is what it is today, about $2,337. So just budget that. Sometimes if you have to do engineering, it could cost you more. So you may have to get an engineer involved, septic engineer if it's a tight spot, or maybe you got some issues with rocks, whatever you got to do to actually get this figured out. And it could cost, maybe you'll spend $4,000 to $6,000 working with an engineer to get that layout drawn up instead of spending maybe, $200, $300, $500 to get it done and submit it to the county. So, and this doesn't actually include that fee for the actual drawing of it. This is just the actual permit fees that we're talking about now that are paid to the County of San Diego Department of Environmental Health. So, okay, so the last thing we're going to talk about here on the initial part of the fees is your permit processing. So this is something that is typically will cost. It used to cost a lot less because it's kind of so difficult to get permits. But the county is so much slower. But we typically were budgeting before about $1,000. Now we'll throw in $2,000, $3,000 in order to cover those costs. So this is a cost you want to add at the end of it. So you'll be spending that. That's typically paid to a permit processor. We handle that in-house with our permit processor. So that's just something we add into the cost of actually getting a permit. So that falls under the permits and fees. So if you add all those up, for that particular house, 2,226 square foot home, you're at $31,616 for the total permits and fees that would be for that property. So the other things you want to consider is if you're not on a septic system and you are on you have city sewer and city water, like you don't have a water well too, you will have to consider the actual tie-in to the city sewer and city water, which can cost $20,000 a piece. So that potentially could be another $40,000 that you would have to spend to actually tie into those. That doesn't include the actual connection of that to the house. That's just to get the right to tie into the sewer, pay the fees, and to get the water meter set. And then you got to take it from the house, from the meter to the house to get that done. The other consideration is if you do not have city water is a water well. So you would have a water well permit that would go on here, and you have it's not very much, but you'd have a small fee to actually pull that well permit that you would need to drill that well. Your well driller would be pulling that for you. So, all right. So I hope that helps you in understanding permits and fees. If you're building a house in San Diego County, what you expect you might spend on that. Hey, it was great talking to you today. If you have not already, subscribe to our channel here on The Real Property Show. If you're looking for more information on building a custom home, building an ADU, remodeling your home, or actually buying land, make sure you go to our website at tfgonline.com. Again, it's tfgonline.com. Find the resources page at the very top of the menu. Click on that. That'll give you access to a ton of our resources. You're going to find pricing guides for custom homes. You're going to find a pricing guide for ADU. You're going to see pricing guide for remodeling your home. You're also going to get our step-by-step checklist for buying land that you can use to actually get it done. So go there. You can also find a very, very comprehensive FAQ section in there that will give you access to all of the content that we actually produce in these videos and in our actual podcast. And we turn that into a text format and we put it in our FAQ section, and it's all broken up in different sections to help you find what you need to have there. So, all right. You can also visit us on any podcast platform and actually subscribe to The Real Property Show, and you can get weekly content that we put out there. So, all right, it was wonderful, wonderful talking to you, and have an excellent rest of your day.